I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough Board of Education with a public hearing on the budget on April 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being live streamed on the district website, where a recording of the meeting also will be posted. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. May we have a roll call, please?
All right, we're in business. Mr. Barbella? Mr. Buccarelli? Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Ingracia?
Here.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Murad? Ms. Sedvani?
Here.
And Mrs. Scharf?
Here.
We have 8 present.
Okay, can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is that Mr. Buccarelli?
Kraft.
Oh, Mr. Kraft, I'm sorry. Thank
So we
you.
got a second.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Pepe, can you please read the reason why we are going into executive session?
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-11, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss a matter rendered confidential by federal or state law, student matters. Be it further resolved, the minutes of this closed session will be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. This closed session will be followed by an open session where action will be taken.
Okay, I don't think we're going to take too long, just so you know. I'm hoping maybe 20 minutes, but maybe I'm wishful thinking. Maybe less than that, which would be nice. Motion to come out of executive session. So moved. A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? And then we'll move on to board member comments. Are there any comments from board members? Okay, then we'll move on to the presentation of the 22-23 budget.
Okay, welcome everyone. Now, this is the public hearing, so I'll address my comments to the public, all 3 of you. At the last board meeting, we had the presentation of the budget for the Board of Education. So I'm going to run through the introduction and the early slides very quickly. We always begin our presentations with our vision statement. Our next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. First, we also have the slide with our Board of Education members. And Mr. Pepe and I would like to express our appreciation for everyone's assistance and support with this process every year. It's a long process every year that starts in the fall and concludes sometime in February. But their support is very much appreciated and their input on the decisions that we have to make, especially when we have a tight budget. So the next slide is our vision statement after the introduction and overview. Everyone's familiar with this statement. We have it on our board agenda. We have it on the website. I talk about it frequently in a variety of ways. But again, we're focused on that culture of inquiry, equity, and collaboration. And the next slide, we just have a couple of points about that, because as we strive towards that culture of inquiry, equity, and collaboration, we're placing student engagement at the forefront, at the center of our efforts. We want to create an authentic learning process, or I should say strengthen an authentic learning process and improve instruction through a variety of innovative ways, with a focus this year in particular on design thinking and always on creative problem solving. We believe in the importance of communication and collaboration and strengthening all of the adult and student learners in our community. But of course, we need a safe, culturally vibrant, inclusive, and supportive learning environment to create that foundation. And we are emphasizing constantly the importance of a growth mindset as we approach our lessons. So the budget objectives have been the same for the last 3 years. We've been very consistent with this. We've placed a large emphasis on improving teaching and learning according to the district vision. That's our roadmap. Provides our guideposts along the way. And we have a focus on improving the operational efficiency of the district and reducing expenditures. We're always trying to stay within that 2% cap when we go through this process each year. And we want to balance the budget without decreasing our fund balance. A couple of past accomplishments. Our first budget here, we created certain special service positions that had previously been outsourced, the behaviorist, the speech therapist, and certain in-house aides for specific students with special needs. Stabilizing the special services costs was the result of that first budget, and also a redesigned preschool. We invested in technology and reduced the number of platforms and systems that we were using, and currently use Genesis for multiple purposes now. And we restructured the technology support services. Last year's budget for this current school year, we restructured music staffing, restructured the ESL world language staff at Bayberry, and we're able to maintain all of their staffing levels and place an emphasis on continued professional learning and collaboration. And so the key decisions to meet the budgets this year, we have some added assistance from the federal grant funds that are going to allow us to enhance academic and social emotional opportunities for our students. We'll use the federal grant funds, as we've discussed at previous meetings, to expand counseling services at Bayberry. And we also are going to address the staffing shortage for the ELL students pursuant to the state requirement because of increased enrollment of ELL students in our district. We're able to maintain all of their staffing levels, and we are, again, continuing to focus on professional learning and collaboration. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pepe.
Okay, so the budget is developed over a long period of time. Really, we've already started thinking about next year, but formally we sit down and start working on it sometime in October, November. And so this just kind of gives you benchmarks of how the timeline works, starting in November, bringing us through to today, which is the public hearing on the budget, and the finale, and then the final last little pieces within 48 hours of this meeting. When the budget is adopted, I will be posting it on the website. This just kind of gives you a little glance at where we've been coming from and where we're going to as far as enrollment goes. You can see for the first half of this chart, we were up in the low 700s. We dipped it down a few years back, and we've been steady, slight increase over the last couple of years. I just want a little footnote about that is that the statewide average for enrollment has been decreasing for several years. So the fact that we've remained flat or slightly increasing is actually a positive sign. Okay, these are a lot of numbers, and they kind of tell the story grade by grade of our enrollments from the past few years. This is all available, it will be available on the website if you want to take a closer look. I'm not going to spend time going through every number, but I just wanted to let you know the way that this is constructed. When you look at the last two lines, the current year is taken from the enrollment report from our March board meeting. Those are the numbers based on that. And then what I do is for kindergarten and preschool, there's no way to predict how many students we're going to have. So I just use the exact same number. Then I take each grade level and just shift them over. So you'll see kindergarten currently has 56 students. So I'm projecting for first grade 56 students next year. And that's how the projection works. So if you look diagonally, they all go. One thing to note is this method, it's not perfect, but I think it's as close as we can get to a realistic projection. So when you look at the top number for grade 4, not the top number, I'm sorry, the second from the bottom, that's 70. So that's how many fourth graders we currently have. So those students would next year be moving from Bayberry, this is Bayberry's information, to Valley View. And then on the low end, on the bottom end, we currently have 65 first graders, but we're projecting 56 first graders for next year. So that difference between the 70 that are leaving Bayberry to go to Valley View and the 56 that are coming into kindergarten, that's why there's showing a decrease of 14 students. That doesn't mean that we actually anticipate having 14 fewer students. It's just the best projection we can make without knowing how our kindergarten and first and preschool enrollment will work. Also, keep in mind that what isn't reflected in our projections is students that move in during the year. We always have some increase in students at various grade levels, but there's no way to project that. And the next slide just shows the same information for Valley View. Again, you see that 70 number is the projected number for 5th grade. Those are the students coming from 4th grade, and each one goes diagonally. And we have 65 8th graders. So we have 70 coming in from 4th grade, 65 going out. So Valley View's projection is showing an increase of 5. Putting that all together, we have a projected decrease of 9 students. And again, these are all estimates, and I explained the method. It's not perfect, but kind of gives you a sense of where we might go. So probably more important is how that impacts the class sizes. I just want to make one note about this chart. So I'm showing you what the current class sizes are on the top. If these are averages, that doesn't mean that there's actually 16.25 students in one class, but the numbers on the bottom are all based on an assumption of the same number of sections in each grade level that we currently have. That can change, but we wouldn't make a decision about that until we have more solid enrollment numbers for the new year. So for example, if you see 3rd grade is showing 25.3 average students per class and 1st grade is showing 14 students per class, there's a discrepancy there. If that actually holds true, which we don't know until we finish enrollment, if that holds true, then there's a decision to be made where we might need to increase the number of sections in one and decrease the number of sections in another. In a perfect world, we would just add a teacher, but with the budget situation right now, we don't have the funds to add a staff member. So this is a breakdown of the revenues. Our total revenues are $14.9 million. 12.5 of that comes from local tax levies. The other revenues include our preschool enrollment for our regular education parent paid tuition, interest that we get from the money we have in the bank, and other various miscellaneous fees that we may charge, such as a technology fee. The budgeted fund balance is an amount that comes from prior years. So every year at the end of the year, we get audited and the auditor tells us, okay, you had this much extra money from this year. So 2 years from now, that's going to be included in your budget. And the reason it's 2 years is by the time you get that number from a current year, you've already finished the budget for the next year. So it goes in 2 years later. So the 456,000, that comes from money that we had extra 2 years ago. And state aid, the actual categorical state aid is just under 900,000, plus we have an anticipated 150,000 in extraordinary aid, which is additional aid the state will give us. We don't know how much that will be, so we just estimate it. That's based on special education costs. And finally, we have a withdrawal from capital reserve. This is for specific projects that we are concerned we may need to put in place next year. If we don't, then that money goes back to the capital reserve. There's one very large project, which is a replacement of chillers. And if that happens, then we have the money from our capital reserve, which that's what it's for. If we're able to get through the year without having to make that change, then the money goes back into the capital reserve. Just some highlights of things that are good to know about how we try to keep costs reasonable. We look for as many opportunities to share services as we can. And these are some of the bullet points of things that we currently are involved with in shared services. Custodial and maintenance services, we work with the municipality, with the Watchung Borough. We help them, they help us as much as possible when there's a project that we can do together and get a better, unit price because it's a larger project because we go in together. That kind of helps. We also are in a joint transportation agreement with the high school, so they are able to get us. We're involved with their bid. They actually put the bids out for our transportation, and it's included with their bids, and so that gets us better pricing than if we just went out to bid on our own with just 7 routes. We have various purchasing. We have been adding cooperative after cooperative since I've been here, plus there were cooperatives in place. Just so you understand what a cooperative purchasing system is, there's some group that actually bids items out, and then we're able to jump on and take their bid prices. So they get the lowest bid and they put it in the cooperative menu. And then because we join the cooperative, we get to take advantage of that pricing that hopefully is less than if we just went to a local vendor and asked them. There are some cooperative pricing systems where you have to pay to join, and then others that are free, and free is my favorite flavor. So those are the ones that we participate in. And then finally, we also participate in a joint insurance fund for our property and casualty insurance. And by joining that, there's a lot of benefits to being part of a joint fund. Okay, so some key things as we develop the budget. These are just the things that we have to think through. On the left side, we have revenues. On the right side, we have appropriations. So the only places we get our revenues from are state aid, local taxes, the excess surplus from 2 years prior. And then if we want to make a withdrawal from reserves like we're doing this year with capital reserve, if we have the money available, and also our preschool tuition. That's where our revenues come from. And on the appropriation side, we have salaries, we have benefits, we have various costs other than salaries and benefits for general education, and then additional costs for special education. We have our student transportation and various facilities and maintenance costs, and then a small group of others. At the bottom, I list fixed cost increases. This is not additional. These are like subgroups of what's above it, but they're important. And when we talk about key factors, this is a very key factor, which you're going to see on the very next slide. So this is a very sad story, but it needs to be told because you need to understand what we're up against when we set out to create a balanced budget. And this is how our situation is. So fixed costs means things that are contractual that we don't have any means of changing or lowering or decreasing. Our salaries, health benefits, student transportation. These are all things that are required. And the way the market is right now, those are the increased costs we have in those 3 areas. They're all estimates, but as you see, it comes up to close to $500,000 of increased costs just from the fixed things. So that's not adding any new programs. That's not hiring any new staff. That's not bringing in any new supplies or resources. That's just to keep operating as we currently are. On the other side, the increases in revenues are limited. And our local tax increase levy is limited to 2%, which is $245,000 this year. We have our state aid increase, which is actually a pleasant surprise this year. We got a pretty good increase. It was like 20% increase from state aid. So that was nice. The budgeted excess surplus is kind of a variable that we really don't have control over. It depends on where we end each year. So as I said before, we had about $60,000 from 2 years ago. That was excess. That's part of our budgeted amount this year. Well, last year, the budget amount was even more than that. So we actually have 280,000 less this year than we did last year in our reserves from the 2 years prior. So that's unfortunate as far as total bottom line comes. So the end result is that we have increased fixed operating costs that are close to 500,000, and we have increased revenues of just over 100,000. And it doesn't take a mathematician to know that that doesn't work. Right. So that means in order for us to balance this budget, we had to find $369,902 someplace. Fortunately, we're pretty good at this. We have looked through anything that we don't need, anything that we could reduce, how much, anything that we could use grant funds. Mr. Alex has referred to several things we're doing with the federal grants that are helping to keep things running without having to increase our budget. And so we were able to get over that obstacle. This chart shows you just a visual of where the money is. This is in pretty much, if you go to any district in any town in USA, you're going to see this slide. It shows you how much is salaries, how much is benefits, how much is general ed, special ed, and so on. One thing I would say is, salaries and benefits in most districts are always going to be your largest costs. And usually it's somewhere anywhere from like 70% on somewhere in the area, 70% of the total budget usually goes to salaries and benefits. And then the next two are your general ed and special ed. Our special ed pie piece is larger than I would like it to be, but I'm happy to say it's smaller than last year's pie piece. So that's a good thing. We have had some efficiencies within special ed that have helped out a little bit with chipping away at that deficit that I referred to a minute ago. All right, this shows you just a year-to-year comparison by category. So you can kind of see we don't have much movement. Nothing went up significantly or down significantly. The fixed costs, are going to go up. That's just the nature of that. It shows that both general ed and special ed, we were able to find some efficiencies and bring those numbers down slightly to help with that deficit. Transportation took kind of a big hit this year because of the scenario that happened last year. But I think that should stabilize now moving forward. And the rest is fairly flat. The one thing, the capital improvement is a little misleading. It's showing going from no bar to a bar that has some meat to it. But that's just because we withdrew money from our capital reserve for projects that we might need to put in place next year. Okay, so that's not your typical operating. Those are your bigger facilities projects. And that's what we build capital reserve for. And that's something we are looking to move in the correct direction soon with our capital reserve. All right, so let's end with, so what does this mean for me, the taxpayer? So I've done what is typical and shown what the impact is for what the town has reported as the average household. I'm sure that there's probably not a single person whose house is exactly that dollar, but it gives you kind of an idea. So this year, the ratables or the values of the properties in town have actually increased significantly. There's a $72 million increase. Last year, the increase was only about 20 million. So that's a pretty hefty increase in home values. Just keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in a second. So $12,536,993 is the tax levy increase, or is the tax levy that we talked about before. That's where our funding comes from. If you divide that divide that by the total values, the ratables, that's how you calculate your tax rate. So because the values went up significantly, it makes the tax rate look nice. The tax rate actually decreased. But that doesn't mean that the dollar amount decreased. That just means that the rate, when you divide how much you're paying in taxes as a town by the total values, the total rate went down. The real story is for the average assessed home at $760,895, the estimated school tax would be just under $5,000, which is an increase of about $107, about $108 from the previous year. If you are trying to figure out, well, how does this apply to you? And you know your house is not $760,000, but maybe your house is $600,000 or $800,000 or anywhere on the spectrum, you can kind of use that rule, that $14.16 per 100,000 to approximate what your taxes would be increasing this year. And that is that. So I think at this point, we open up for questions from the public, right?
Okay, seeing no questions from the public. I just wanted to thank the administration and the operations committee for all your hard work on this. And then we'll move into comments from the public on the 22-23 budget and any other agenda items. So we welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for the public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Are there any comments from the public?
Mrs. Harvey, did you want me to read my part?
I'm sorry?
Did you need me to read the other?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Can you please read the statement due to recording of the meeting?
Absolutely. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public.
Good evening, Dennis Bakos, 47 Brook Drive. I got here late, so I missed part of the budget presentation, but I had a question about the, in one of the attachments in this month's meeting, I noticed that there was some items and some itemization of some referendum items for DRG, the architectural firm. I'm just wondering, are those numbers in this budget as well? And I'm just curious also how those numbers, if so, compared to last year's, if it was in last year's budget. anyway, that I wanted to ask about that. If you're allowed to answer at this point.
Okay.
I'm just looking around to see if anybody actually did. Mr. Pepe, do you want to answer that?
I can provide an answer. So the answer is those specific costs are estimates. Also, if you look in that that handout, it's actually more of a menu. It's not saying that we're going to do everything in there. If you add it all up, it's pretty expensive, but it's more of the things that we might need them to do. And they just said, if you need this, this is what it costs. So we're not intending to do all of those. We'll only be billed for the things that we actually ask them to do. The money is not specifically in the budget because if the referendum happens and passes, that those costs actually are part of what are called the soft costs in the referendum. If the referendum doesn't pass, then we have to find money to pay the bills, which we did this year. I can't speak to whether the costs will be more or less this time around. In theory, you would assume it would be less because a lot of the groundwork has already been completed. I know that our board is dedicated to try and engage the community a little more this time. So we might need more services that help us with that. I don't know. We'll see how the year goes.
Okay, so we're going to move on to adoption of the 22-23 budget. Amber, can you please move the adoption of the budget?
I'd like to move the adoption of the 2022-2023 budget resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education adopts the 2022-2023 budget as summarized below, and be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education approves the general fund tax levy in the amount of $12,536,930,000 to support the 2022-2023 budget. And then do you need me to? Sorry,
There's a second one.
B, okay. And I'm doing all the administrator, I'm sorry. I think I have the wrong,
I think
right?
it's just A and B.
okay, sorry. Authorize travel-related expenses reimbursement for the 2022-2023 school year, whereas that's.
Second.
Okay,
I'm sorry. who's
and
second? I missed the second.
I think it was Rich who was the second.
Mr. Beccarelli, did you second that? Oh, Mr.
Oh,
Kraft,
it's
thank you.
Adam. Is there any discussion?
I just would like to explain that I'm going to be abstaining on budget. And the reason for that is a few reasons, but as was said in the presentation, that some of this is in the works for some time before I came on board, but we did address it in the operations committee meetings. But some of those discussions in those early meetings are really what we saw today, that there's without getting into too much detail, that if there's a deficit, how are we going to bring it back to balance? And I think it would be worthwhile to go in a little bit more detail of how that was able to be done, just for the public's information. But there was really not that much opportunity in the structure of the committee meetings to, after 2 meetings where we came back to this more or less balanced number, to discuss it much further. There was, without an opportunity to really be able to call and ask certain questions, there's opportunity to email, but there's only so much, I think, that can be accomplished strictly by email. So I found myself, upon reflection, not feeling very good about some of the things. The issue with the capital reserve was something that's come up a couple times. Some of these questions, again, if I could pick up the phone and call and talk to Mr. Pepe, I think they could have been answered fairly quickly with some jumping around to various spreadsheets and things like that. But right now we have a position that board members aren't allowed to do that. So it really hampered my ability to understand some of these things where in November of 2020, the treasurer's, the report of the secretary was showing the capital reserve at 1.3 million, 1,313,000. And so we heard in the presentation today that there is a difference from year to year, how much comes back from the reserve. I'm not sure if we're referencing that, but we did have then, other reports come in where the capital reserve was then down to 1.1 million and 1,077,000. And then we had a discussion about this money that has been taken out of the capital reserve for this year. And it's still not clear to me if money is in the capital reserve and something comes up that we need to take care of, can it be taken care of right from the capital reserve? Does it have to be shown as a reduction to the capital reserve ahead of time in the amount of this 500,000 for a potential chiller, and then all the other items that reduced it down? So I'm not comfortable with how the capital reserve has been presented to date. And there really hasn't been much opportunity to go into how things have changed academically with coming through COVID years and into this year, having input from the public on what they might feel was the different needs of how they've changed. So from my position right now, I feel more comfortable abstaining than voting yes on the budget.
I'd like to address that. I'm the chairman of the operations committee that Mr. Ingrassi is on. We spend hours on the budget. This is my 4th time doing it as a board member and as a member of the operations committee. You just talked for about 5 minutes, asked a question, have no idea why you didn't ask that question in any of our meetings, except to make the point that you can't talk to Mr. Pepe directly, seemed to be your reason for abstaining from voting on the budget. And actually, as a member of the operations committee, if you have questions like that, you should ask them. And I don't think, as the chairman, I would understand why you wouldn't ask those questions in the committee. And I also don't understand why you'd be a member of the committee and then abstain on the budget for those reasons. Because you have every opportunity to ask those. We work as a committee. We work in a committee structure. We've had hours and hours of meetings on this. You asked a 5-minute question, very specific. It's very unusual for me to hear you say that you didn't have the opportunity to understand the budget.
I could just respond, Rich. There were committee meetings that we had hard stops on, and there was other items on the agenda. So while we did have hours of committee meetings, we didn't necessarily have hours to spend on the budget. And as I've said, those early meetings with the budget were just a presentation with a commitment to get back at the next meeting. So, some of those early meetings where we had them on the agenda were not necessarily very fruitful for discussion. And, we have had some members of the committee there on certain days, and not as the chairman, you've switched, with Dory taking your spot on a couple of those meetings, which is understandable, it's fine. But it just isn't, at those meetings, there wasn't much opportunity for discussion, and there wasn't, there was other things discussed, but it wasn't spending hours on the budget. And so I felt that there wasn't that much opportunity to discuss some of the things. Maybe it only took me 5 minutes to mention these things, but to go into a deeper look at how we could, instead of fine tuning some of the small amounts that were discussed with what could be added back in from last year, it was very much a copying what had been done from the year or two before, and kind of redoing that with very minor changes. And I think that, maybe that's, could be a mistake, but like I said, it wasn't for me to try to make a point. It was that I did not find that we had very much discussion on the budget in the committee meetings, the way it turned out. And there was absolutely no opportunity. There seems to have been some type of, whether it's an agreement among certain with the board leadership and the administration, but that board members are not allowed to call and ask questions of.
So that really is
Administrator.
your right.
What's
Okay.
that?
That really is your problem. That's the point you're trying.
Can I
to
just
make.
make one other
Well,
point?
that was a problem.
One
Yes.
second. So you can always call me, you know that. And if you say, hey, Rich, I have a couple of questions. Let's ask this at the next committee meeting. Yeah, I've missed the committee meeting. You've missed the committee meeting, right? We all have other things that we have to do, right? We sometimes miss committee meetings. I think you should ask yourself whether you want to be on the operations committee to do the work, or you want to just come to a public meeting and tell the rest of the members who work on this that for the first time, we're hearing you're not satisfied with having enough depth of the budget in our meetings. You don't call the chairman. You don't talk about this in any of the meetings. You wait till we have a public meeting on the budget and say, we didn't have enough discussion on this. I don't think that's being a partner. I don't think that's being a responsible board member. I certainly, as chairman, don't think that's being a responsible member of the operations committee.
And at the last meeting, when the budget was presented to the entire board, wasn't that the time that all board members could have asked any questions and made any comments? So that if you didn't think there was time in a committee meeting, you had all the time in the world there, just like all of the other board members did. So there's ample time.
I have a question about the budget, and the question real quick is, I saw previously, that's why I was a little disheveled. I'm sorry, I was trying to look for it earlier. I do not see it on the agenda anymore, but it was my understanding that we were going to pass a lease and shared services during this meeting, and it's not happening. The question is regarding the budget is, last year, since we did not have a lease, were we paying for any of those services that we had to maintain the fields where the borough did that for us previously?
Mrs. Harvey, do you want me to respond to that?
I think Rich was going to respond.
No, I was going to ask you. Go ahead, Rich.
Okay. So fortunately, that we have a very good working relationship with the borough administration, and nothing that was done in the past stopped. So no, we didn't have any additional costs because we don't have a written document. So there are, we're hopeful to get all of that squared away soon. But no, it didn't cost us any money because we didn't have the lease. The borough still mowed the lawn on Grant Field. The Little League still did a lot of work to prep the fields and keep them maintained. And we helped where we could. We had our person who lined the field for our games, which is pretty much what happened in the past. And we're looking to get back to the same. That's what we're trying to get into writing is the same situation as it was in the past. It's just putting it in writing. The other part of that was lost my train of thought. What was the other thing you asked?
That I don't see it in the,
Oh, right, about the
Agenda.
two items. So I just wanted to clarify for all board members, the way that I always put together the operations agenda, I put a list of what I call potential agenda items. And the reason is when we have our operations committee like a week and a half before the board, there's a lot that happens in that week and a half. So those are just the things that at that moment I say might show up on the agenda. So that's why you saw them there, because we were hopeful that maybe we'd get it done in time for the board meeting. It didn't happen. So we weren't able to include that on the agenda for this meeting.
okay, thank you. And Mr. Buccarelli, you said that I can, or any other board member can call you if you have any questions. And I called you last year in reference to a question regarding the referendum. It was simple. It was a conversation while I was doing a walkthrough. I had a question regarding the bathrooms and I conveyed that concern to you. We had an honest dialogue and it was respectful. The only thing is what concerns me is the next meeting, the same conversation that you and I had a public member come up and accuse not only myself, but another board member of trying to dissuade any thing on the referendum that would help children. So of course, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't feel disenfranchised when I am conveying my personal opinions and thoughts, right? And I'm not saying that you did it. I'm just saying this is what
So
happened.
what exactly are you implying? Why would you bring up a
Because that is
conversation with
exactly,
me that you then linked to imply that I talked to somebody in the public about it?
because that's what happened.
It is absolutely not what happened, Amber. I don't know where you make this stuff up.
I am not making it up, Mr.
Oh.
Buccarelli.
I
can,
did have a conversation with you.
yes,
It stayed with you. I did not talk to any member of the public about it. So where's the link?
that's exactly what my question is. I do not talk to anybody else.
Okay,
So you're saying,
I am saying
You're
that I am
saying
afraid
that-
to call you because I am afraid that there is no transparency when we all talk. I would rather get a clear answer for my questions from people who are doing it on a daily basis versus it coming back.
oh,
to
so
any
this is
board member
another one
negative.
about want to talk directly to the administration and you
Yeah.
make up a story?
I am not making it up, Mr.
Well,
Buccarelli.
Wait, hold on a
will
second.
Gladly
You're-
provide proof.
You're saying you had a conversation with me. Then you jump to, in the next meeting, a member of the public asked me a question.
I
And
didn't ask you a question.
you,
I asked you a question. The
then-
member of the
then-
public came up and accused board members of trying to,
and you think that that's because I incited that?
I would like to know where it came from.
Oh, my God, Amber.
I'm not
Are- are
saying
you
you're
serious?
inciting it.
Seriously?
I am not
Seriously?
saying you're
Okay.
inciting it.
Seriously?
Point of
Mr. Buccarelli,
order,
I am not saying
Amber,
you're
where do you
inciting.
dream
point
these
of
things up?
order,
How do you dream these things up,
I'm
Amber?
not-
point of order.
I am
Mr.
not
Buccarelli,
accusing you of
Mrs.
anything. I am
Murad.
saying I would like,
Absolutely
no, I am
accusing you.
saying that when these
Don't say you're
conversations
not
happen,
accusing me
I
of
we
of
should
something.
stay within the
I'm
committee.
going to close
You're
the discussion
implying
on this.
An accusation.
I am not
And
accusing.
you're impugning my integrity and you're absolutely wrong. I will say this in front of the public. You're wrong. I said nothing about it.
Rich, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
I abstain on the adoption of the budget. On item B, I would vote yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
I abstain on adopting the budget and yes on B.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, the budget is adopted. And
Okay, we're
The
gonna
travel
move on to superintendent remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Harvey. Let's move to the principal's reports because we have our student council representatives here. And despite the week off for spring recess, a lot of really fun events happened in April. So Pierce, are you going first? Or Emily? Okay, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pierce Grunstein, and I'm Valley View Student Council Co-Vice President. I'm happy to present the Valley View Principals Report for the month of April. During the month of April, students and staff celebrated Autism Acceptance Month with spirit days and classroom activities. In celebration of Earth Day, 8th grade Earth students have been creating oil pastel projects to build awareness for endangered animals around the world. Students Tori Schiffman and Annabella Shang submitted their art to the National Saving Endangered Species Youth Art Contest. This project uses cubism to show how each species is affected by threats to their natural environment. The more trees people cut down, the more pieces of the Asian elephant population they're taking away, Schiffman said. The grand prize includes funding to build a garden of native pollinator plants. We wish them both the best of luck as we await results. The Valley View Showcase, a musical journey of belief, was held on April 1st and 2nd. Our cast and crew did a wonderful job performing scenes from various hit musicals. Miss Esposito and Miss Riley directed the musical with support from Miss Nestor, Miss Walgren, Mr. Mel, Miss Lovenberg, Miss Berrios, and several parent volunteers. The cast and crew did a spectacular job. Scoliosis screenings took place during the week of April 4th. Please contact Ms. Sucheski with any questions or concerns. Valley View Spring Picture Day was held on April 5th. All families interested in purchasing the pictures are able to order them online through LifeTouch. The district science fair was held in the Valley View All-Purpose Room on April 7th. Student teams and individuals in grades 2nd through 8th dazzled the judges with their scientific experiments, the thought behind the experiments, and the discoveries. Our district winners were Ariana and Rohan Patel, whose project revealed how to delay the browning of an avocado. Our Valley View winner was Sarah Levine, who taught us about why jewelry tarnishes and how to prevent it. I'm also excited to share that Noah Santora, Nikayla Ridley, and Ariana Patel placed in the top 25 in the country for the team's competition that took place in February. Their team qualified to compete in the team's Best in Nation competitions, taking place during the 2022 National TSA Conference, which will be held June 26th to 30th at the Gaylord, Texas Resort and Convention Center just outside of Dallas, Texas. Well done. Believe it or not, marking period 4 began on April 9th. Report cards for the third marking period were made available to parents via Genesis on Thursday, April 14th. Anyone having difficulty viewing the child's report card is encouraged to contact the main office for assistance. The Environmental Club, under the direction of Miss Pistorius and Miss Husted, hosted our annual fashion show on April 11th. Students designed and created accessories and clothing out of recycled materials. Classmates modeled the pieces while the designers explained their creative process to judges. Liliana Sanchez won first place. Sienna Woods and Aubrey Patel tied for second place, and Emma Spini earned third place. Hats off to all of our participants. Your designs were very impressive. The Honors Band, a band made up of student musicians from each sending district, performed at Watchung Hills Regional High School on April 12th. Representing Valley View were Matthew Attila, Alana Voshuk, AJ Sutton, Tanya Mahura, Bennett Cooperman, Pranov Keshavavapadnam, Noah Santora, Kushi Yadav, Hansa Patel, Michael Zhang, Emily Hauk, and Konrad Kazimierski. On April 14th, Valley View students were treated to an interactive performance from the Harlem Wizards. Students participated in challenges and cheered exuberantly. for the Valley View faculty basketball team as they competed against the Wizards. Thank you to our PTO for bringing this exciting experience to our school. The Watchung School District was closed from April 15th to the 31st for spring break. I hope everyone was able to get some rest and relaxation. Students in grades 5th and 8th participated in the New Jersey State Learning Assessment for Science on April 26th and 7th. The NJ SLAR Science measures student proficiency with the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in Science. These science standards require assessment tasks that examine students' performance of scientific and engineering practices in the context of cross-cutting concepts and disciplinary core ideas. Makeup testing will be available for students all of next week. Adventure learning is back in the Valley View Gymnasium. Our enhanced program will use adventure experiences as an effective tool for improving the way students live, learn, and work together. Our High Five Adventure course will be used to provide experiences that develop a sense of connection and excitement in a learning environment of discovery, challenge, and fun. Students will build the skills through a leveled approach. The goal is to climb and belay to the ceiling of the gymnasium on multiple high-level elements. Please contact Mr. Leslie or Mr. Boglovsky with any questions or concerns. Thank you and have a good night.
Well done, Pierce. Thank you very much. It's great to hear about all of these events, especially the ones where we're hearing about creative problem solving and collaboration and really demonstrating how we're actualizing our district vision. So thank you. And I also want to say the musical was wonderful. It was excellent. And I know you were part of that and Emily was part of that. So congratulations to you both.
Hi, I'm Emily Howe, Valley View Student Council Co-Vice President. Bayberry has had an exciting, fun-filled month. Third graders attended a special band preview on March 23rd. The fourth grade band did a great job showcasing their instruments and their musical talent. Students in third grade will receive more information about selecting their instrument for next year. Students, staff, and parents enjoyed the book fair of the week of April 4th. It was nice to bring the book fair back in person, and we appreciate the PTO investing the profits back into the school by purchasing books for our students. On April 11th, the Harlem Wizards and the Bayberry staff squared off in an energetic and entertaining game of basketball, tricks, dancing, and fun. The noise and the energy permeated the school. We are so thankful for the PTO for this uplifting, joyous assembly. The kindergarten play, My View of the Earth, was a huge hit. Parents enjoyed the performance on April 12th and 13th, and the entire school attended the play on April 14th. We're so proud of our students and thankful for the hard work that our teachers and parents put into this special event. On Monday, April 25th, we wrapped up our cultural events with the Indian dance workshops during physical education classes. Students learned about the Indian culture through folk and Bollywood dancing. They found it was a great workout and a lot of fun. Trimester 2 ended on March 18th, and report cards were made available for parents on March 25th. The first session of beginner's chess for third graders ended on March 14th, and the second session of beginner's chess club for second graders began today. Students are working hard to develop their skills while enjoying some social time with their peers. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Fun and exciting events are happening at Bayberry. And let me add emphasis to the statement that the kindergarten play was a huge success, because it really was. And I can't wait till those kindergartners are up here to lend their talents to the musical. So thank you again. Just briefly, two notes for me. The 2020-21 school performance reports have been released by the state and are available for public viewing. We have links on our website. These annual reports are the NJDOE's, Department of Education's way of sharing a wide variety of data about each school district in the state. Again, please visit the website and you can take a look at the school performance report website. And also the state has put out a resource entitled Impact of COVID-19 on Data Availability for the school performance reports. We also have a link on our website for that. The PTO was mentioned a few times. And by the way, the energy in the Bayberry gym was incredible when the Harlem Wizards were here. So thank you again to the PTO for their generous support of our students. On the agenda tonight is a revised total of the donations and grants for the 2021-22 school year. We're grateful for this incredible financial support. And the enrollment reports remain consistent at 638. That's 22 more students than we had at the start of the school year. Thank you. That'll conclude this section, Mrs. Harvey.
Thank you, George. We're going to move on to committee reports. Kevin, can you give the HR committee report?
Yes, the HR committee met on this past Tuesday, 26th at 4:30 p.m. And present were Dory Harvey, Jen Sharp, and myself, and Mr. Alexis was there as well. First, we discussed the observation evaluation process, and Mr. Alexis provided an update. And that process is on track. The committee did not have any questions. Next, we discussed non-tenured and tenured staff, and there's a list that was updated to correct the current staff steps on the guide and placed in the board's folder. The staff will be approved at the current steps and salaries at the May 13th board meeting, and they will be updated thereafter based upon the negotiated collective bargaining agreement that will be put in place. Mr. Alexis then discussed the process for renewals and non-renewals, and the committee asked a few questions with respect to non-renewals. Any non-renewed staff will not appear on the board attachment. Only renewed staff members will be listed. We also discussed the science teacher candidate for the 2022-2023 school year, and I believe that's on the agenda for today. We had a discussion regarding the substitute teacher compensation rate, and one of the big issues is that Warren Township recently upped their compensation by an additional $25. And we actually heard that there were some districts that pay as much as $150 or $180 per day. So to remain competitive and have a sub pool that can, substitute when needed, the committee was in favor of upping the rate by $25 per day from $100 to $125. Next, there was a discussion of administrative contracts, and those contracts will be shared with the board in the next board packet, and we can discuss changes then. And those, I believe, will be on the agenda for approval next month. We next discussed the change of assignment. Mr. Alexis reminded the committee that he lets the staff know at this time of the year that they can make a request to change their teacher assignment. The administration gives these requests every consideration, but has to make decisions based on the best interests of the students in the schools. And then there was a discussion regarding a volunteer assistant baseball coach, who I believe is on the agenda for today as well. And the committee is in favor of approval, and also indicated an interest in a volunteer for softball if we can find one. So the administration will look into that. And I believe there are board agenda items listed here. I think that I touched on all of them, or some of them. There's also an approval for an intern for clinical hours. Previously was approved for guidance hours. Approval for an unpaid leave of staff, 3, and then 1 retroactive. and another retroactive medical leave. And there was no new business.
Thank you, Kevin. Rich, can you please give the Operations Finance Committee report?
Okay, me to give it? I'll give it. Since I chaired it last time. So we discussed the federal consolidated monitoring. Mr. Pepe explained that the preliminary findings were minor and that steps were being put in place to resolve them. He stated that the monitoring process was still in progress and that the board can expect to see additional preliminary findings related to other federal grants in the coming months. We did not have any questions about the Title I monitoring preliminary findings. We were in favor of contracting with Ms. Avacha again for this year's annual audit. We discussed the health benefits options. Mr. Pepe informed the committee that market results for health insurance included a bid from the State Health Insurance Fund that would provide equal to or better medical insurance with a 0% rate increase for 2022-2023. So if the district remains with Horizon, the rate increase would be about 7.5%. The savings with going with the State Health Insurance Fund would be an estimated $140,000. Mr. Pepe shared his prior experiences with changing insurance carriers, and the committee discussed pros and cons. We were in favor of having the administration investigate the potential impact on our staff in consideration of a potential recommendation for a change to the new program. Student transportation. Mr. Pepe informed us that the administration was considering the options of renewing with Student Transportation of America. We're going out to bid for student transportation for the 22-23 school year. We discussed the risks and benefits associated with going out to bid and asked Mr. Pepe to collaborate with the high school business administrator to investigate the likelihood of getting other bus companies to bid on the Watchung Borough routes. We discussed the referendum, discussed the next steps, including hiring an architect and the structure, schedule, and composition of the ad hoc committee. We were in favor of accepting the DRG proposal that was mentioned earlier. Again, just a menu of items that may come up over time. Committee discussed the frequency, modality, and agenda setting process for the ad hoc referendum committee. We were in favor of holding in-person meetings and asked Mr. Alexis to create a tentative meeting schedule. Both majority and minority opinions expressed during ad hoc referendum committee meetings will be reported to the operations committee for consideration. The committee was also in favor of including all 7 of the community members who expressed interest in serving on the committee and to keep the invitation to apply to join the committee open until the date of the first meeting, which will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, May 2nd. The administration will pursue additional avenues to advertise the invitation to the entire committee. The initial list of ad hoc referendum committee members includes 4 board member spots, Mr. Buccarelli, Mr. Ingracia, Mrs. Harvey, and 1 open spot for other board members to rotate in, Mr. Alexis and Mr. Pepe for the administration, and then representatives from the school community groups, PTO, CPAG, WEF, IDEA, the Valley View staff, the Bayberry staff, and Borough Council, and then the members of the community that applied. We reviewed potential agenda items. He explained that the administration was not sure if the Phillips Field lease and shared services proposals would be ready to present to the board, and that these items were just here as placeholders. And then an update was given to us. Progress is being made, the shared services agreement and lease agreement with the borough. He explained that Mr. D'Amato is in the process of reaching out to the Little League to determine how they would be able to help with certain maintenance projects that would be the responsibility of the borough under the proposed lease agreement.
Thank you, Adam. Adam, can you give the curriculum committee meeting?
Love to. So we discussed RTI Direct, which is an online software leave service that standardizes our intervention process and makes data easily accessible, similar to the 504 Direct that we use. Currently, we're using internal processes that are not as organized. The committee was strongly in favor of adopting RTI Direct. We discussed the enrichment program timeline. You'll notice the attachments from each of the principals in your packets showing highlighting accomplishments from this year, including the coding and robotics clubs, which were extremely popular, extended learning opportunities in the classroom, collaboration between the SOAR teacher and the general classroom teachers, and consultation with other districts as part of the research process. You also see plans for the next 2 years as well. Special Services Committee was referred to today, the community events and announcements, which contained information about the Autism Acceptance Spirit Week during the first week after spring break, which just happened. End of year activities and promotion ceremonies. The updates, including the planning of a first grade musical performance and the combination of classes for the third grade recorder concert. The kindergarten play, again, was a huge success. I, as a parent, was blown away by all of the students. They did an amazing job sitting there perfectly still when it wasn't their turn. They stood up in unison when it was their turn. They all knew their lines. They memorized 6 songs, I think it was. It was incredible. So a big shout out and thank you to Mrs. Miller and all the teachers that helped us prepare them for it. And then Fiserv STEM enrichment update. In lieu of our May 5th curriculum meeting, we're going to actually attend an open house as a group. And new business, the committee discussed the 8th grade end of year party, which is scheduled and coordinated by the PTO's 8th grade parent committee.
Thank you, Adam. Since Joe's not here, I'll give the policy committee update. We did have a discussion on hybrid board meetings. The committee discussed the regulations regarding hybrid meetings and the pros and cons of permitting remote public comment. The committee decided to research a wider range of districts in the area and follow up on the technology specifications identified in the existing bylaw regarding remote meetings. The committee will revisit these topics at its next scheduled meeting on May 9th. And then on the agenda, it's on for second reading, policy 2422, comprehensive health and phys ed. And we just wanted to make a note from the policy committee that parents do have a right to opt out of any part of the curriculum. And there was no new business. Okay, we're gonna move on to board liaison reports. Kevin, can you give us a legislative liaison report?
I do not have any updates for this meeting. Thanks, Mary.
Okay, Jen, is there anything for the Somerset County Ed Services Commission?
Yes, the date is escaping me, but we met about 2 weeks ago. And the Ed Services Commission has secured a school bus that they are currently in the process of getting ready to ship to a school in Ghana. The students of the Ed Services Commission have removed the seats and everything from inside the bus and are in the process of making shelves so that the bus can be filled with books and other helpful items. And there is going to be something organized about donations of books, and I will follow up about that.
Thank you, Jen. Amber, is there anything from the Somerset County School Boards Association?
There is not. Their next meeting is May 12th.
Okay. And for the New Jersey School Boards Association, I just wanted to remind board members of some upcoming NJSBA events. There's the Somerset County SBA hybrid meeting celebrations. It's on Thursday, May 12th from 6 to 9 at Somerset County Votech High School. There's also a legislative and regulatory update webinar on May 4th at 11 a.m. They have an equity conference 2022 on Friday, May 20th at 10 a.m. In 2018, NJSBA created the Equity Council to examine the issues of educational equity and share research and best practices with the NJSBA membership. The council has since worked to create reports and updates which support the needs of New Jersey districts. A special presentation about the roles and responsibilities boards of education play in diversity, equity, and inclusion will be presented. There's also Wind Down Empowerment series, which is Wednesday, May 25th at 7 p.m., inspired by the well-attended workshop 2021 Wind down programs. These virtual evening sessions will feature NJSBA staff who will host live breakout rooms discussing an array of subjects, give members an opportunity to ask questions and have meaningful conversations with their peers from throughout the state. Finally, I just wanted to give everyone another reminder that we will be having our annual board goal setting occur during our June 23rd board meeting, in which we will have our board retreat, which is open to the public. Please start thinking about what measurable goals you're interested in the board creating. I know I said this at the last meeting, but I'm just going to keep reminding everyone. I will work with Mr. Alexis to put this topic under board business for discussion during our May 12th meeting, which is coming up, and June 9th board meetings, and send all suggestions from everyone to Gwen Thornton, our New Jersey School Board rep, since she is the moderator of our board retreat. Please be prepared with suggestions for those discussions. Okay, for community engagement, I don't see many people here from the parent group, so if there's anyone there from the PTO, WEF, or CPAG to make an update, please, now is your time. Okay, then we'll move on to action items. Anthony, can you please move the administrative items?
Make motion to move administrative items. A1, approve minutes of previous meeting. A2, accept school security drill report. A3, affirm superintendent's HIB report. A4, affirm superintendent's HIB report. A5, approve summer 2022 before and after care program and tuition rate. A6, approve placement for special education out of district extended school year program, summer 2022. A7, approve State of New Jersey Department of Education special education student transportation contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to the extent that if we want to choose to vote yes on everything but one item, that we can abstain on that one item as we take a roll call.
Okay, yes, roll call, please.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
I'm voting yes on A1, A2, A3, the first HIB report abstaining, A4, yes, A5, yes, and A6, yes.
I'm sorry, are you abstained from A3? Is that correct?
Yes.
You are voting yes on A1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
And 7, yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, all motions pass.
Hey, Kevin, can you please move personnel items?
Yes. I move personnel items. B1, appoint science teacher, Valley View School. B2, appoint clinical intern. B3, appoint volunteer assistant baseball coach. B4, approve unpaid leaves of absence. B5, approve medical leave retroactively. And B6, approve salary adjustment for substitute teachers.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Rich, can you please move operation items?
Sure. Move item C1, approve payment of bills. C2, approve transfer of funds. C3, accept financial reports. C4, rescind acceptance of donations. It was replaced. C5, accept donations and grants from the Watchung PTO for Valley View and Bayberry Schools. C6, accept youth services grant. C7, authorize submission and accept grant for American Rescue Plan homeless children and youth. C8, approve disposal of surplus broken and or outdated property. C9, approve PSE&G Energy Saver Program corrected. C10, approve contract with DRG Architect, and C11, approve professional travel and related expenses.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
It's already been discussed in relation to the DRG architect proposal, but just to say that the purpose of approving that would be to give some avenue for the early asking of questions and to have input as we move forward with preparing plans and the outreach to the community for the proposed new referendum.
I just wanted to thank the PTO for all their hard work and their generosity on their donations. Especially, I'm sure all the kids are going to be super excited with everything that they're planning. So I just wanted to thank them for that.
Amen.
Is there no other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Adam, can you please move curriculum items?
Sure. I'd like to move D1, approve Bayberry field trips. D2, approve Valley View field trips. That's it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Amber, can you please move policy items?
Yes. I move E1, approve policy for second reading and adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, actually. I wanted to know if we could possibly do an opt-in option for the health and physical education part of this, well, some of the parts that could be potentially controversial instead of an opt-out, but an opt-in option for parents. That could be considered. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was I would like to request that during the summer when we are writing their curriculum, that it is provided to parents in advance and that we remind parents and our community that if they have any questions or concerns, they can come directly to the administration, the principals, the teachers, and have those conversations with them so they are comfortable. And that's it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we don't have anything listed under board business. Is there any board business to discuss?
Yes. Mr. Beccarelli, I apologize if my statement sounded accusatory. It wasn't my intent. It was in a way to shed light on a broken system. I feel like communication is often lost. and it's misinterpreted. Not saying that you're doing it. It could have been a comment that was made possibly after our discussion in a operations meeting that was possibly taken out of context by somebody else or anything. And in consideration of tonight's conversations and many conversations that's happened throughout the year, throughout this year, I think to have a more efficient committee structure, I would like to move that the board adopt a committee of the whole structure. This is to ensure that everything is transparent, not only to board members, but also to residents of Watchung. We must ensure that no member feels disenfranchised or limited in order to find alignment in our board.
Are you making a motion?
I
Is there
am.
a second?
A second, if I could just ask a question. So you want to propose right now that we vote on going with a committee of the whole?
Yes,
And that would have a effect of combining?
all of it, yes, combining all the committees. And when we have any discussion, we're doing board business in front of the public essentially, but all of us are informed at the same time. And I feel like we only have 2 schools, so it's easy to manage. It's about communication and community engagement. And it's a great way to further the engagement of our community, which I think it's a critical component of just board governance.
Is there any other discussion?
I have a question. I mean, just how would that work? We currently have 1 meeting per month. We have 2 or 3. I'm just wondering, what does that entail?
I think it depends on how the administration and the president would reside on it, right? Because I think it was,
I would be in favor of.
It's really a board decision. I'm sorry, Adam. I've heard a couple ways that it's done where we have a working session and then every single committee meets and it's in public. And then there's also, just individual committee, or like, yeah, if we're going to meet for operations, then every meeting would just be open to the public.
I think this is a really big issue that on the spur of the moment, we're being asked to change decades of how the board is operated with really no chance to think about it. I suggest this would be a really great topic for our board retreat.
I'm in favor of discussing the structure and the pros and cons, but I'm not prepared to vote on that today.
I think that if we do discuss it, we have to vote. There's a motion on the table.
I'm sorry, I'm
But
not
if-
prepared to vote in favor of it.
Right, I got you. If we do want to discuss it at the board retreat, Glenn Thornton would be a great resource for us to get more information about it and to discuss it. And it would be good to find out probably too, how many boards actually work as a board of a whole, as opposed to an individual committee structure. So I don't know off the top of my head. I know in the first year or 2 of going to the School Board Association trainings that we have, they have discussed that in individual committees, that some boards do it and some boards don't. It just depends on what the board wants to do. Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Buccarelli,
No.
Mr. Ingracia,
At this time, I would like to look into it further. So when I seconded, I was still unsure if we were voting to explore it or to make that change. So at this time, I am not in favor of making the change, but I am certainly in favor. And if we can get some information on it before the board retreat in preparation for it, I would be for that. But at this time, I'm not prepared to vote yes on that.
Mr. Pepe, can I amend the motion or after the vote?
We're in the middle. We have to
yeah, now
vote.
that we're in the vote now.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Ingrassi, can you just clarify, are you abstaining or voting no?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Kraft,
No.
Mr. McDonald,
I'm also not opposed to it, but at this point I have to vote no.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Setbani,
I also want more information on it. At this point, no.
Mrs. Sharf,
No.
Mrs. Harvey.
No.
Okay, motion does not pass.
Mr. Pepe, I'd like to amend the motion to explore the idea of possibly having a committee of the whole.
That would just be a new motion. I'm not sure
Okay.
if there's a need for a
Okay.
vote on that. I think that the board can decide that it's going, I think the board's already
fair.
indicated it's.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
that's
we're in
fair.
favor of that.
So I just wanted to make sure if we had. to make
I could
any-
just send an email to Gwen and just let her know that we would like information on it. And
Okay.
then I'll ask for it to be provided before the board retreat. And then whatever she sends us, I'll send out to everybody.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add, Dory, that when you do email Gwen, can you ask her if there are any boards that do a committee of the whole with the exception of HR and personnel? Because I'd imagine that there are going to be a lot of executive sessions and it might not be necessary to have the public, waiting 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half.
Right,
on
yeah.
us during that time.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, any comments from the,
I have something else for board business.
oh, okay.
I'm embarrassed about how dysfunctional this board is becoming in certain respects. I'm the chairman of the operations committee, and I find out for the first time tonight that a member didn't think he had enough information about the budget, and so he abstains instead of calling me, instead of mentioning it at any of the meetings that we had. And Mr. Pepe, I think, can tell you how much time was spent on this. And I'm also, very, very surprised that Mrs. Murad, look, you're running for office. We know that. It's the second time you've been running for office since you've been on the board. So apparently you're not really satisfied with being on the board, but you do like to cause a lot of controversy. And that's fine. It's your right to say what you want to say. But when you use my name and when you use a phone conversation you had with me to imply that I then told somebody in the public something, which is completely false. You made up some bizarre conspiracy. You did. You made it up. You didn't say it in exactly those words, but I don't understand the connection, and you do know exactly what you were doing. Don't pretend that you don't know what you were doing, because there's no connection between the two things you said, except to imply, and I'm talking, that I told somebody about our conversation and had them come up and repeat something in public. That is a fantasy of yours. That never happened. I don't know why you would say that, except for the fact that you're running for office. What I'm embarrassed about is we had this argument in front of these kids that are doing such a great job and that we're trying to help. And the guy comes up and he gives a report, and the girl comes up and she gives a report. After all of that, why act like that? Why create this controversy that is completely and utterly made up by you, that has nothing to do with the running of the school, and directly imply that it was because you had a conversation with me that then I just went and talked to somebody and said, hey, you better get up and say something about this in public. That's bizarre, Amber. That's bizarre.
Mr.
And it's
Buckarelli,
a sign of dysfunction.
it is dysfunctional. I 100% agree, and that is why I made that motion. I am not making it up. And in good faith, there's plenty of things that I can go back and reference to, and I will not. Because not regarding
no,
you,
let me
not
hear it.
regarding you,
No, let me
not
hear it.
regarding you. Because this is what we've done throughout this entire
You said you
year.
didn't make it up.
Every
So tell me
meeting,
the proof.
somebody has to be accused of something, don't they?
Yeah, like
Well,
this meeting, you accused
I
me of
am not,
something.
and I apologize
So just
for
like
it,
you accused the
and
administration of
Mr. Buck-
gaslighting. Yes, people have
Mr.
to be
Buccarelli,
accused.
and I apologize to you for that, the way it came out. I did. And I said it could have been taken out of context, perhaps when you were relaying. I just said that right now, when you were relaying it, well, my comments in an operations meeting. That is what I said. So it could have been you. I don't know who it was because I don't talk to anybody.
Operations meetings aren't open to the public.
They aren't, and that's my question. The only person I spoke to about it was you.
And you don't think anybody else in the world could have the thought that you had?
Then accuse the board? Then if operations
So
meeting,
you're-
or if they're
you're
not
saying
public,
that-
how was a public member of the public informed? This is why I think we should just have these meetings in public where everyone understands and nothing is taken out of context. So then when individuals are blamed for anything or anything has come forth, that everyone knows where it's coming from and it's clear. And I think it has nothing to do with me running for any office. It has nothing to do with any of that. Last year, multiple times.
I
have
just
asked-
want to, I'm sorry if I can interject. I just
Sure.
wanted to say that, we don't have control over what the public says. It's freedom of speech
Right.
and, yeah, I honestly, I don't even remember what you're even talking about, Amber. Like, I don't even know what,
am
I mean,
just
it's just
conveying my-
amazing to me that you keep bringing up stuff from like a year or so ago.
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you, if you felt so passionately about it and you've held on to this for such a long time, why wouldn't you just address these things as they're happening so it's relevant to everyone else? I mean,
Because
for this
for
that
me, it
happens a
was-
year ago, I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about, honestly.
And that's fine. I'm not going to repeat anything I already did. I already said what the issue was and what came forth. What I am saying is now it's becoming a pattern where every other time something that happens within our board that's supposed to happen in our committee meetings, if they're not public, then eventually ends up in the community, and it really is harming our community, and I don't want that.
I don't think committee meetings are considered the same as an executive session.
No one,
Just so you know, I mean, the only one where, members of the board, any member of the board, isn't really allowed to share that information is really HR. So I'm not sure what you mean there's a pattern. It's really unclear what you're
that's
talking
fine.
about.
Mrs. Harvey, the only thing I would like to move past that, and that is the conversation we've had plenty of times. I'd like to move past that, and where I would like to go is where we are working together. We're working with the administration, and we are fluid, and we are one. And that is not.
Right,
here.
But
and
I
think-
disagree with your.
Yes, because you're in
opinion.
you're in the majority.
But-
Maybe I'm in the majority because we all agree that because we might be right. I don't know. It's my opinion, right?
Yes, and that's
I,
fair.
I'm on 2 committees. We work through a lot of issues very smoothly with this administration. I am thrilled with the job that Mr. Alexis, Mrs. Fickner, and Mrs. Kidd are doing. I think they have a tremendous handle on this school district. And I feel so great about the direction we're going. So I don't have any complaints. I'm there firsthand. We are the representatives for the community. We're there expressing what we hear from the community, what we think is best for the community. That's what we're doing. And I have to tell everyone here and anyone who might be watching later or at home or tomorrow, I'm so confident in this team's ability I think they've already brought us excellence, and they are always thinking about the future and ways to improve. They are so open-minded about what we bring to them. They are creative in their thinking. This budget process is a bear. I mean, I don't know how more clear Mr. Pepe could be about the constraints we're under, and yet we balance a budget. We didn't have to cut staff. Like, we're doing great things here. I except for the fact when Mr. Buccarelli gets accused of things. Other than that, I see great work.
I just think that, it's easy to throw around the terms, teamwork, working together. And from, someone who I'm sure most of us don't even hear from. So if questions need to be answered, there's always a way to talk to chairs of committees, other board members. And, I have to say, for the two board members, you and Mr. Ingracia, who are complaining about the process, I don't really see either one of you engaging in the process.
I did.
So how can the process not work if you don't call other board members, if you don't have, it's called doing the work. I'm sorry to tell you that that's what it is to be a board member. And you
Yeah.
have to make phone calls to other board members. You have to talk to chairs of committees.
I've only
We
received,
do that. We do that amongst us. I just want to clear it up because I don't know if either one of you have noticed this, but we have a small administrative staff and they really can't spend a lot of time on the phone talking to everyone. I mean, I as the president, try not even to call Mr. Alexis. I wait until committee meetings to try and bring up things because they need to do their jobs for the kids. And that's what we're all supposed to be here for. But if you as a board member don't take the time to engage with your fellow board members, whether you like them or not, it's called being professional and asking those questions and being engaged in your committee meetings, then that's on you. That's on you. And that is your role as a board member to do it that way. So to say that a system is broken and you haven't even engaged in the system, it's just
Sorry,
crazy to me.
I've been on the board
That's
for a
a,
while
that's
now,
a,
right?
I know, and you haven't
And
engaged
I
for
think
2
the
years,
only
Amber.
person
You
that
have
I've
run
received-
for other offices for
only-
2 years,
And
and you have not truly engaged in
I've
this Board of
said
Education.
exactly my point.
So
I keep
what I'm
on saying
saying is,
things
if
and they
you
are
want to
brushed
try
under
and
the
do
table.
teamwork, Amber, if you want to try and do teamwork, you need to actually engage in the
Mrs.
board.
Harvey, when I said last year during our board retreat, if we can revisit this idea, and I've asked Mr. Kraft as well, I still have not heard an answer or yes or no regarding putting any information on our website that will be supplemental for students. to help
Amber,
them.
there's
Have I heard
always
anything of that?
opportunity in committee meetings for new business. There's always opportunities for you to bring things
You
up
have said
over and
that-
over again. There's those opportunities and you have to do the work.
There's only
You
one
have to do the
person.
work to do
I
that.
did. I
The-
did
the
do the
other
work. I
thing-
provided
the other
you
thing,
with all
Amber,
the
Amber,
information.
please, wait, because you obviously are very confused after even being here for 2 years
Clearly, I
as
am,
to
please.
what it is to be a board member.
No,
And
I think
even
I'm
if you
confused of
bring
the
up an
system of
idea,
how it
wait, please
works.
just listen, because I think listening might help you.
Go on.
Even if you bring up an idea in a committee or in an email or anywhere, it doesn't mean that the rest of the board is going to agree with you. It's happened to all of us.
That's it.
So you can try to be persistent, which is great, but it doesn't always mean that that's what you're going to get. And we have to be adults about it. We have so many things to work on.
You don't have
And
to
we
agree
have to
about
make,
it.
we have to make sure that we go with the majority. It's not just one person here who makes a
We're a
decision. We
committee
all
of
have a
nine, you're
vote.
right, and we're a committee of 9, and you're right. But when any information is sent out, at least send out an answer back and say, look, this is not something that we felt that was necessary at this time. That hasn't happened. There's only one person who's answered, that's a chair currently, all my answers, any questions I've ever had, and that's Mr. McDonald. And and honestly, I thank you for the amount of information you sent back because.
So
then I have other
Amber,
questions.
whenever there's an issue like that, and I put this in emails every January, if you are having a hard time getting in touch with the chair of a committee or you're not getting an answer, guess what, who you can speak to? is the board president, and I haven't heard much from you.
I call you and you
So
say I'm busy right
you
now.
as well, Mr. Ingracia, if you're having a hard time getting in touch with the chair of a committee, please let me know. Because I will make sure to get that chairperson either on the phone and either find out the answer for you, or I will make sure that they get in touch with you. Again, this is part of the process that you have refused to engage in, Mrs. Murad.
I have not refused to engage in it. I
Yes,
just
you have.
explained-
So to sit here after almost like what, a year and a half or so,
I've
to
just
say
told
that
you
the
all
only
time.
one who's engaged with
Yes.
you is Kevin? I mean, the fact that you haven't engaged with the president of the board as to which committee chairs,
I've
you haven't
called
gotten
you and you've
answers
told
from,
me,
no,
and
but
it's
you have
on
never
record
discussed
that
with
you have
me.
said that
You have never
wasted my
discussed
life.
with me, Mrs. Murad. Let's be very clear and stop lying. You have
There's
never
emails.
discussed with me,
Okay.
Mrs. Murad, that you have had a problem getting in contact with any chair of any committee. So please don't
It's
sit
not
there
a
and lie,
problem.
and
I
don't
will
change the
email.
conversation.
Okay.
You're talking about teamwork. I'm telling you, you need to engage and you
Okay.
need to follow your role as a board member. That means talking to your fellow board members. That means talking to chairs of committees. If you cannot get in touch with a chair of committee, I know that if there's a time where you want to contact me and I'm maybe doing something personal, guess who? I talk to the vice president and I say, Jen, can you please take care of this? Because I don't have time to do it right now. I always make sure that everybody gets a response. So if you're having that problem, it is sad that you have waited this long to say something. But for you to accuse board members up here of
I
not
have said
working as
that
a
to you
team,
when we
it
were
is just,
talking.
I
In
just
January,
don't
I addressed
understand
that
all
to
the
you.
grandstanding that's happening all the time. I really don't
Mrs.
understand.
Harvey, I addressed this to you in January. And in January, after that conversation, I was censured. So you please tell
Because
me.
you accuse the administration of gaslighting, Mrs. Murad. I
I
know you want to erase
not.
history and rewrite it, but that's exactly what
You took it out
happened.
of context.
I mean, I don't know why you still can't get past that and
I
why you don't
tried. And then the
understand what has
next meeting, it's
happened.
somebody else, and then it's somebody else. I mean, you just sent an email that we need concerned citizens of Watchung to come up and actually talk. I mean, when is that
No,
going to stop, Mrs.
what I
Harvey?
sent out into the operations committee, now that you're changing the subject, because I guess you haven't won the last conversation, which is okay. What I sent out to the operations committee was that we had a mailer that was sent out to the community that pretty much and essentially tanked our referendum. So it only seems responsible if we're doing all of this community engagement for the referendum to ask those people and give them an opportunity to come and speak with us so that they can let us know their concerns. So let's hope that we don't have another mailer that goes out with misinformation, Amber.
But
So we want to engage with them. I think it's irresponsible not to want to engage with our community.
And
Don't
I-
you?
and that's why I was in
Right.
favor
So,
of creating an
so
ad hoc
there was a
committee.
group that spent their own money to pay for a mailer to go out to the community that tanked a referendum for us.
Do you
And
really
you don't
think it
want
was
to
a
try to
mailer?
engage with them.
Do you really think it was a
That to
mailer?
me is a lack of community engagement right there.
Do you really think it was just a mailer?
100%.
Okay.
Please. And
And
they spent a lot of money and it was deliberate and I'm not going to say.
I think it is just very irresponsible of this board to not want to reach out to those people. And that is an open
Right, they
invitation
had a
for
lot to
them.
say.
If they would like to meet with us, they can email the referendum email address. They could email Mr. Alexis, any of us, and they can set up a meeting. We really want to know what it is. So either we can educate properly, maybe we didn't communicate as well. Who knows?
And we're doing a better job,
Right.
aren't we? Right.
Which is why that was an open invitation for them to come to us. That's why we want to understand what our community had issues with that then caused them to send out a mailer that they paid for with their own money to stop a school board referendum. That's what we want to know. So I think that's the responsible thing to do, is to engage with them.
Okay,
Do you have any other questions?
I do not.
I have a couple comments. I would just like to say that what I see as the recurring issue here is that, Amber makes a comment and Rich overreacts to it. Rich Buccarelli, that is. Now for the second time, if anyone was acting inappropriately in front of the presenters here
Yes,
today, I
dragging
think
his
it
name
was
through the mud
Rich
in-
also.
In public,
But
yes. That's a terror.
yeah,
yes,
all I'll
okay.
say is it's a two-way street.
He
If
overreacted.
you took such issue with Amber's comments, just in my comments, you accused me of making my statement strictly to make a point about the committee, rather than reflecting on really what's gone on the operations
Did
committee
you
that
pick up the phone and
chair.
call me?
This,
Did you
Rich,
pick up the phone and call me?
I'm looking for accurate information in a timely fashion. I want to
Right,
talk
and
to
did you
Rich
pick up
Pepe.
the phone and call me?
All of our committee meetings, it's very clear who has the handle on all of the information
So
that
this
we
is
ask, and it's Rich
all
Pepe.
what we thought it
So that's
was.
why I
You
wanted to
just
talk
want
to
to
him.
change, so you want to talk directly to the administration like
No, I just,
former board members used to
Rich,
do a lot.
you can interrupt me as much as you'd like. I've let everyone speak here without interrupting, but you accused me of that. You further went on to accuse me of not working when I'm pretty sure I've put about as much work or more that you have in this committee since the beginning of the year. And so those are two examples just in this meeting. So for you to get so upset about a comment that may or may not have even been directed at you in some partial way, you were part of the story, but then you inflated that to now have this argument.
I didn't
And you
start.
accused me of those two things when I just was making a comment to explain, in wanting to be in harmony, to explain why I felt that upon reflection, I felt it was right for me to abstain at that time.
Yeah.
So that's what you just did to me, and you didn't see me shouting about it, right? So it's a two-way street.
It's
That's
not,
all I'm saying.
listen,
That's all
Anthony,
I'm
let's
saying.
be real about this, okay? A former board member who happens to be your wife goes on Facebook, implies that I'm a racist, implies that I'm a misogynist, and then calls me an angry old man. So talk to me about interrupting you. Does my wife go on social media and call you names, Anthony? Mr. Polite, who, oh, God forbid you interrupt somebody when you're defending your name. So you really don't want to work with the board. You really have a different
Not true.
agenda.
Not true.
You have a different agenda. There's grievances. There's grievances. There's personal political agendas. None of it has to do with getting stuff done for the kids. You could have picked up the phone if you had all you really wanted to make as a point today, and all you really wanted to make as a point, using my name and implying that I said something to somebody else, which never happened, which you totally made up as a fantasy.
I'll send you the information.
Right?
It's on record. I'll record it. I'll email it to you.
You'll record
And like I said,
me telling
not you
somebody.
telling somebody, but that
So
information.
why did my name come up?
Because you're the only person I had that conversation with.
So you're still saying that it had to be
So
me?
it had to go into a
You're
committee where
saying it had
somebody
to
else.
be me?
No, I am not saying it had to be you. I
don't even know what you're talking
even
about.
know
So
for
that
a
would be,
fact that
so that
you
would be
have-
happy.
You
But
don't even talk to the public either, the way anybody else
I
does.
don't even
But
talk
anyway,
to anybody in this town, Amber.
exactly my point. I don't either.
Okay, is there any other board business?
Yes, there is.
I just
Today-
wanted to make that point that, because Adam, you also, made a comment that we had the opportunity at the last board meeting. So it's kind of, if the comments are made in public, then it's, there's an accusation that there's a point trying to be made. So then when I wait for the next scheduled committee meeting and, Rich isn't there again, everyone that
What do you
gets
mean
on says
again?
that they have, I believe there was two, Rich, but that you switched, but maybe that was it could be wrong, but I'm saying that there's only been a few meetings in between when basically the first rough draft of the budget came out. And yes, I wish I wanted it to put some money towards the reserve, to the capital reserve. And we're not putting a dime of taxpayer money towards our capital reserve in this budget. So yes, I would be inclined to vote no. But I also wanted to express that in this, the last public meeting, I thought we had another committee meeting to take another look at things and to talk about things now that they were being more fully developed, counting in the state aid and things like that. Instead, we had, the agenda was very full, and we had people with hard stops that were cutting the meeting at a fairly short level. And so that was why I was sharing that with you, is that I felt like upon further reflection, I didn't want to vote yes for this budget. So it shouldn't be taken personally, or it shouldn't be taken to try to make a point that, you know, that I'm somehow being disingenuous.
But
I
Mr.
was-
Mr.
I was-
Ingracia, even if the chair of a, I just want to clarify what's going on in our committees and our structure. Even if the chair of the committee is not able to attend a committee meeting, there is always another member of the committee asked to run that committee. So you don't have to wait for the chair of the committee to ask your questions. You
said-
can ask your questions with any other board member that's in the committee.
Not if people have hard stops and to end the meeting fairly quickly, and there's other agenda
You can
items already
always
that have to be done.
request for addition, I mean, I've done it myself in curriculum. We have usually 3-hour or more meetings in curriculum. And sometimes people have to get off the meeting. And I get that. So if we don't finish our business, I have requested through the chairs of those committees for us to have an additional meeting. If that's the case, that's what you can do to pursue that. I mean, it just astounds me that it's just like you're waiting till we're voting on something.
Right.
And you're using the excuse of, well, you didn't have time to ask a question in a committee, but you didn't alert anyone to that.
Right.
That's what I'm a little concerned about. You
So-
didn't alert anyone to that. And if there was time that was running out, why didn't you say, well, I still have questions?
Right.
I
That
did
need
say
to
that in
be
the last committee
answered.
meeting.
Can there be another meeting?
I-
And I'm not in all your meetings. I'm not, so I don't know what happens or not, but that's an avenue you can ask for.
Well, sorry
I
not to
mean, it's
interrupt.
just, but to wait until the night of a vote, I mean, that's
Right.
what I think is important for all the board members to understand too, is that, we do work a lot through the committee structure, right? So if you have questions about things, you can email those questions, you can call other board members who are on the committee. If you can't get in touch with the chair, you can contact me. There's many opportunities for people to talk to each other. I mean, I haven't had any issues even being, not being a board president, being able to reach out to committee chairs myself or send an email.
Right.
And I've seen that, like I've seen you send emails to the whole committee or to the whole board. So I don't understand why now we wait until a vote on our budget to then turn around and say, well, I didn't have an opportunity to ask any questions. Every
I didn't
board
say
member up
any,
here has
Joy.
every
Look,
I didn't say
opportunity
any.
to ask questions
All right.
prior to what's on an agenda.
Can I just, say-
I asked many questions, but I didn't have all the answers that I felt comfortable moving forward with a vote.
But then that's
So-
different. That's different. If
Right,
you
and
if
it
you don't feel
passed, and
comfortable,
it-
you can
so-
vote no. You can disagree.
Right.
But we have to go with what the majority of a committee wants, and then they recommend that to a full board, and then the full board votes on it. I mean, I just don't understand, like, this is something that we've talked about, and I know that you're like newer.
that's what I'm.
But this
so-
is something that we've talked about a lot at board meetings where, like, the structure, because it keeps getting questioned, right? And I try to send out I don't want to bombard everybody with a billion emails, but I try to explain that as much as I can, either here or if you call me, which I don't hear much from you either, but I mean, or if you send me an email with a question about it, I mean, I'm here to try to help as much as I can too. So I just don't understand why, we're really not supposed, the agenda is sent out to board members the Friday before. Our board meetings are on Thursday. So you get the board packet on Friday afternoon and you see all the things that are on it. If you have questions about anything and on any item that's in here, to wait until the board meeting because you don't know how, you're not satisfied with answers, you don't know how to vote. It is all, and I'm sure Gwen Thornton would tell all of you this too. It's your responsibility as a board member to reach out to the chairs of the committee, myself, and we're here to help you. There has been some times where I don't know the answer. And then I get Mr. Alexis involved in it so that he can help because I want to make sure everybody has a clear answer as to whatever their question is. Kevin does the same thing. We often get emails from Kevin saying, this is what's being asked. I just want to make sure that the information that I'm giving is correct. I mean, this is how we all have to function together, right? But you need to engage in that process. So when you get the board packet on Friday, if you're still feeling that you have unanswered questions, no one is going to be able to read your mind. No one is going to know that. So it is up to you as the board member to reach out to those other board members and the chairs of those committees to try and help clarify as much so that you feel comfortable and you know how to vote. And whether you vote yes, whether you vote no, it's up to you. I hear a lot of abstaining recently, and I think abstaining is being used in replace of a no vote. It's okay to vote no if you want to vote no. I mean, we all just voted no on the other thing. So this is what, abstaining, you're supposed to really abstain because there's a conflict or you didn't get enough information, right? But if you haven't done and put the time in to try and obtain that information, then you're really not doing your part as a board member, which is what you have been elected to do by this community. So you have to put the time in. It takes time. Trust me. I know it does. But you have to reach out to those people. Again, whether you like them or not, you're here to represent the community. You need to get the information you need. You might not agree with all of it, but then you have every right to vote no, right? You have every right to vote no. I hope this clears some things up. If you still have questions, you can call me, you can email me, whatever you're comfortable with. And I will do my best to get as much information to you as I can. And if I can't, I direct you to the person that can. Are there any other questions about this?
Not this, but there's a comment. I emailed Mr. Pepe and then forwarded you that email as well. This is in reference to the FCC Emergency Connectivity Fund, the 7.17 billion program that will help schools and libraries. I emailed it to you. I don't know if it was discussed in operations in that meeting, but if it was brought up or anything, but the deadline is May 13th for that. Even though it was today with the person that had emailed it to me, but it's May 13th.
I have no idea, Amber, if you want something discussed in a
I emailed it
committee,
to you.
right, but you
And you
can't be
said that
vague about things. If
Okay.
you want something on an agenda in a committee, I am not here to read any of your minds. I need you to tell me, Dory, I would like this to be put on a committee agenda. And if you don't want to reach out to the chair, which I would think you would put the chair of the committee on that email too and say, I would like this to be discussed in this committee, then that's how you would do it. But if you don't directly say that, how am I supposed to know what you want me to do?
I don't know, you see $1 billion fund, you would think that next time I will. But anyways, it is an option that's available at this time.
Great.
Just wanted to let you guys know, there's a couple of other grants that are out there during webinars that I've seen, and I will forward those to you as well.
Is there any other board business to discuss? Okay, So we're going to keep this open to comments from the public. Please remember to state your name and address before speaking. If there's any comments, please come on up and make your comment. Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.